Okay, after shower video, and I am going to upload the video that I made earlier. And I was just thinking out loud, but as I've had time to decompress after work, I was like, you know what? There's something to it. And then I went on my phone to look at Instagram, and some lady was posting about the Apple commercial. And she screenshots this woman who's on her phone, and it's got these men that are around her. And it just so happens that right behind this woman, there's a painting of another woman with demons surrounding this woman in the same manner as the woman on her phone. And the poster says, see, they have to tell you. They have to tell you. And this is something that I've heard recurring in the social media spaces coming from Christians and quote-unquote conspiracy theorists and people looking into Illuminati and things like that. Everybody says, they have to tell you. And I'm like, who's they? And no, they don't. If they is demons, if that's what they're referring to as demons, demons don't have to tell people before they attack them. Look at the story of Job in the Bible. Satan asked God. So God knew. God already knew ahead of time. But Satan didn't warn Job. Satan didn't show Job anything. He just afflicted him. And same thing when it comes to the elites of this world, the ones that made the deal with the devil. They don't have to tell you anything. Where is that written anywhere? There might be some demonic contract. Maybe that's something that God put in a stipulation. I don't know. But since when are demonic entities and people that work out of evil, since when do they follow any type of rules? I know there's some pecking order in hell, don't get me wrong, but humans have free will, I get it, but they don't nobody has to tell you anything. That includes demons, that includes elites. They don't have to tell you anything. So I think that's something that's just been constructed, an idea that somebody got, and everybody just kept adopting it and adopting it and adopting it. And I'm guilty of believing it, because up until tonight, I've said that. Oh, they have to tell you. It's true that things get seeded in the spiritual before they come to fruition in the natural, but nowhere does it say that humans have to, get warning signs. Like, everything in the Bible is our warning sign. Like, put on the full armor. It's not that difficult, right? But this actually reinforced my idea from the last video when I was saying that I think all of this revival has been constructed. I think some people truly are coming to Christ, but I think on the flip side, there's been a constructed revival of people that have come into the Christian space that have, of course, been bought off and made deals with the devil, and further trying to confuse the spiritual aspect of things, because people are catching on. I'm sure there's people out there like me. There has to be, right? I'm nothing special. There has to be people out there like me that's like, no, spirituality can be right in tandem with technology and with what's going on currently in the social structures. All of it can connect. All of it can be true. And I think they're afraid that that's going to happen. So they're infiltrating the Christian spaces and the conspiracy theory spaces with people that are going to be purposefully injecting untruths to throw people off course, because we're starting to realize our potential. So that brought me back to when I first got off the social media cleanse, and I was starting to catch up on some information. A couple things came up on my feeds, and one was this Joe guy, and he was some social media influencer that lived in a van, and everybody said that he was like a big Jesus freak, and I never heard of him. I didn't know who he was, but when I saw that, I found his channel, and I was like, oh, he does talk about Jesus. He talks about the Bible. He's got a bunch of old Bibles. I have a ton of Bibles as well. But then I clicked on a video where he was talking about the Freemasonry books, and I was like, how does he have all that stuff? Because I've trained Freemasons in the past, and I'll tell you, regular people don't have access to that information. Kind of like some other faith base that I talked about before. Like, Those books aren't given out willy-nilly. So how does he know that? And why is he kind of defending Freemasonry and not diving in as deep into that as he does with the Bible and trying to debunk things with the Bible? I'm all about debunking everything. I want to know the truth of things, but I found that to be interesting. And then, of course, you go on more of the feeds, and yeah, he's got tattoos of the Freemasonic pillars. And then on his van had the all-seeing eye. And then also on his van, he had painted the sun with the Freemasonry symbol. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? What? He's got the feather in his cap. And I'm just like, all of that, it's definitely symbolism. But I'm sitting there going, this person is feeding in to they have to tell you. They don't have to tell you crap. They're feeding into that false narrative to try to get Christians get more heightened, integrate the supernatural occult with Christianity, because that will raise the vibration of dopamine, serotonin, as well as the ultimate frequency of love and the frequency of prayer to Jesus. So if you mix in the elevated hormonal outcomes when people get excited and titillated on top of the spiritual elevation that increases the frequency, then you have an energy that is just primed for the picking. I know, I might be stretching, but this is fun. I don't drink. I don't have a boyfriend. Like, I research and then I just like think, philosophize. There was another thing that was very upsetting to me, and that was the Perez Hilton thing. And I never was really into Perez Hilton because I think Hollywood, the jig is up, guys. Like, the jig is up. But I also think that he's probably playing into, he's controlled opposition. He's a plant. I dug into what happened with him, and all those cuts were superficial. It just so happens that he came to Jesus a while back, and I'm sitting there going, you know, past dictates future, and Perez Hilton is an attention whore. He loves attention, and he built his business on being crass, on his gayness, and on talking about gossip in Hollywood. And he loves attention. Well, his relevance definitely plummeted, especially with social media exploding everywhere. You have influencers everywhere that did a better job than him and could be more outrageous than him and even look more outrageous than him and even out-gay him. So, of course, he needs something to bring him back into some type of relevance. So he gets sick. I'm not saying he didn't get sick, but I think it's very interesting that right on the same train where everybody else is starting to dig into Jesus, all of a sudden, he comes to Jesus. Kind of like Leo Skeppy. I think Leo Skeppy's a real one, though, because Leo Skeppy is transparent. I like that guy. I didn't know who he was. He came across my feed once a while back when he started reading the Bible. I loved what he had to say because he was honest. He didn't apologize for who he was. He called out the hypocrisy in the church. He said he felt drawn to read the Bible, but he liked it and he hated it at the same time. And I was just like, you know what? God's got his hand on that guy. So I think some of these celebrities or social media personalities that truly are starting to dip their toe in Christianity, I think Perez Hilton probably took a cue from that. Or maybe he did have a come to Jesus moment. I mean, it took a life or death thing for me to come to Jesus. Maybe he didn't have anyone to disciple him and tell him like how things kind of go when you become a Christian, like how to handle the emotional overload and how to handle the overwhelming guilt that you feel when you realize how bad your sin was. But that might just be my hopium speaking. You know, you have to look at patterns. You have to look at people's character. And people can change. But as far as I know, Perez Hilton didn't change. He came to Jesus, got a Bible that wasn't really a Bible. But we're not going to nitpick. He was trying to get the word in. And then all of a sudden, he goes cuckoo? He cuts himself? And then you can find the footage and you can find the screenshots, which just so happen to look like the Ariana Grande video of her covered in blood. Again, not coincidental, definitely planned. Same thing with the Charlie Kirk thing. Like, the fact that you can still find that stuff means that the principalities of this world Satan and his minions that have permission to run the world right now, like, they want this stuff to get out. They want an emotional response. The question is, why? Why the emotional response? Which goes back to my last video. But the fear and the hatred is a very low vibration. But if you get the collective to all have just a concentration of low vibration, they can sap the energy. But if you get people being compassionate and loving and caring and following Jesus and praying, then that's just more energy to sap. So I found like a couple of things to be interesting. I think there's a lot of plants going on right now. And I think that this whole they have to tell you thing is a bunch of nonsense. I think they're purposefully putting this out. How did this Joe guy get to have like almost like 1 million followers? How did Perez Hilton like make it into the good graces of Christianity without anybody testing the spirits, judging by the fruit, which is a huge one? How do you judge by the fruit? You can't judge by the fruit with personalities that you're not in contact with, because you only know what you're presented with. And most of it's lies. And it gets worse with AI. It gets worse with all this propaganda media that was signed into law back in the Obama days. So I'm just sitting here going like, this is getting interesting. I really think it's like, okay, get the population to get as much quality energy expenditure, get their vibration high, get the energy pure, get everybody moving with the electricity, and then because parasites need to feed off something, right? And that's another thing that's all in the, see, this is what I'm saying, the more I talk, the more I think, the more everything's connected. It is parasitical, and it just so happens to be what's in the news cycle. Oh, the parasite here and the parasite there, which again, I'm sitting there thinking it's not parasites. I think it's energetic direct energy or the toxins. It's no coincidence that I got ill and my dog got ill one day after the Canadian smoke, and then we were fine the day after that. I don't eat fresh fruits and vegetables for like a month and a half because I was doing my big cleanse and I did meal prep. So I had all my fruits and vegetables and all my food in the freezer. I was eating from there. So I didn't have a parasite, but all the parasite cleanses that were on social media and being advertised everywhere, and I'm sitting there going like $15 at the herb store, guys. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on this stuff, and you think that's going to save you? This is something everybody should do when you eat like garbage, so you don't get sick later on in the year. But yeah, I don't find it coincidence either. There are big parasites, parasite cleanse here and do this and do that and do this and do that. And then, oh, there's a big parasite. Of course they're going to try to introduce like a parasite vaccine, which will be genetic modification yet again. Yeah, everything's just coming together, but I think it's so funny. The video I had before this one, that I will upload it. I know it's completely fractured, but at least it gives you a little hint and to see how I think about things. And when you see how I think, you'll probably understand why I love mediation, is because you get two sides of a story and you get to ask questions and you get to come to the truth of things, and then you come to an agreement of facts, and then you kind of figure it out all together. But yeah, I find it quite curious. I think this is to get the energy up. And I think like probably right before the Noahide laws get instituted, if that happens, maybe people will wake up to that. I'm hoping that starts making the rounds. I don't ask people to follow me or do anything like that because I have a face for radio. But I would really like if people started talking about the Noahide laws. Because politically speaking, like in the material world and the spiritual world, I think that people need to concentrate on that. But in the meantime, everything else that's going on, ooh, it's just getting so interesting. It really is. I think but the frequency is interesting. I think Satan is just sneaky enough to say, hey, yeah, let's get people on board with Jesus. Kind of make all of the Christians look foolish and make other people that really aren't Christian, make them think they're the cool kids that are looking into all the other stuff and realize that, oh, we have to show them before we do anything. And that'll throw them really off course because we'll have them looking over here while we're actually doing this. What does that sound like? Politics. But they've been doing that in the church anyway. Don't look at the pastor. Look at the praise and worship team. Don't look at their personal lives. Don't ask about their texts. Okay, I'm getting snarky. It's probably just because it's 9:15 and I should probably read my Bible and get to bed. So, anyway, have a great night. To be continued.